In this challenge review, we're going to complete the health system. To get started, let's open up our UI manager and our player script and begin creating the logic that we need to. The first thing we need to do is when the player gets damaged, we need to remove 1 health. So we're going to say health minus minus to subtract 1. From there, we need to update the UI display. So in our UI manager, we have our update lives, and we're going to pass in the lives remaining. So on our player, we're going to update the UI display by typing UI manager.instance.update lives, and we're going to pass in lives remaining, which is our health variable. So at the current time when we first hit, it's going to be a value of 3. The next thing we want to do is hop into our UI manager. Let's focus on just the UI manager part before we focus on any other logic. So here we need to now loop through the lives, check if I is the lives remaining, and hide that one. So first off, what am I looping through? I need to loop through each of these images and remove the corresponding one that is basically our lives remaining. So to do that, we need an array that stores these. So we're going to create an image array. So here we're going to have an image array of all of our lives. So we'll say health bars. Let's save this. Let's hop into Unity. And if we select our canvas here, we can then drag those health bars into the inspector. So on our canvas under the UI manager, drop down health bars, set the size to 4, and we're going to simply drag the life units inside of it. So here we're going to select our HUD. We have our life units, and we're going to drag them 1, 2, 3, and 4 into it. So select the canvas, take unit 1, assign it to element 0, unit 2 to element 1, unit 3 to element 2, and unit 4 to element 3. Save this, head back into Unity or back into Visual Studios, and now we can iterate through those health bars. So here, when we update our lives, we're going to use a for loop to iterate through them. So here we have for int I equals 0, while I is less than lives remaining. So if we pass in a 3, we're going to iterate 3 times, starting at 0, 0, 1, 2, and then the third time would be 3 or 4. So if it's a 3, it's going to iterate 0, 1, and 2, and it's going to remove that 1. So for int I equals 0, while I is less than lives remaining, we're going to increment I. And basically what we want to do here is we want to check for the max. So here we're going to say do nothing till we hit the max. So to calculate that, we say if I equals lives remaining, which is 3, then what do we want to do? We want to hide this one. So here we're going to say health bars. We're going to grab the current iteration that we're on, and we're going to say enabled is going to equal false. So say we get hit, we pass in a 3 here, and we're going to say for int I equals 0, while I is less than 3, then we're going to do nothing until I equals 3. So we'll save this. And when I equals 3, that's going to be 0, 1, 2, 3. It's the 4th element. It's going to hide it. So what we need to do now is we need to be able to actually damage ourselves. So to test this, what we can do is go back to the player script. And we actually need to get damaged. So let's go ahead and attack our skeleton. All right, let's head over here. Here's our skeleton. We'll attack. All right, and it called the damage function. But it's not actually updating our lives. Looking through the code here, the logic says that for int I equals 0, while I is less than lives remaining, which is 3, we're going to increment I, and then we're going to iterate through. So that would be 0, 1, 2. Now, based on what we wrote, it's never going to actually get to 3, which is this 4th index here. The reason for that is because we're checking for less than. We actually need to check for less than equal to lives remaining. So if we save this and head back into the attack, it should now remove it because it can then equal the lives remaining variable. So let's go ahead and run this. Let's go ahead and get attacked. And you'll see here that we got attacked again, and there we go. So our health is working, and we can go ahead and kill this. So now that we have our health UI updating, we now need to just trigger our death animation. So here on the player, what we can do here is we can say UI manager instance update lives, and then here we're just going to check for dead and player animation. So here, if health is less than 1, meaning that it's 0, then what do we want to do? We need to play our death animation. So to do that, we're going to say anim. We need to gain access to our underscore anim or player anim dot set trigger. And let's see if we have a reference variable here to our player's animation. We do. It's underscore player anim. Oh, right. So for our player, we separated out that logic. So inside of our player animation script, we're going to have a death animation. So public void death. And within here, we're going to say anim dot set trigger. And we're going to call the death animation. We'll make sure that's set up in a moment. From our player class, we then need to say, we now need to call that method. So let's open up our player script. And here inside of our attack method, or damage, we're going to say if health is less than 1, then we're going to say player animation. We'll say player anim dot death. And that's going to trigger our death animation. Once we've done that, we need to select our player and open up the animator controller. Okay, select our player, double click, go to the sprite, double click the controller. And from here, we don't have our death animation, or we do right here. We want to make sure that this is a trigger and it's set up properly. So here, where we can trigger death, we'll transition to it. Let's save this and test it out. So we're going to attack the skeleton. We're going to let it kill us. And there we go, our player dies. So one thing you'll notice here is that it's constantly doing it, and that's because our damage code is getting called indefinitely. So what we need to do is we need to limit it. We need to say if health is less than 1, player anim.death, and then here, we're gonna check to see, before we remove 1 health, we're gonna check and see if we're dead. We can create a bool that says if we're dead, but we can also just say if health is less than 1, that means we're already dead and we just want to return this function. We're not going to do anything. So by saving this, it will prevent us from dying multiple times. So let's run this, go back to the skeleton. And there we go, we'll let it kill us. And our player is dead. Now he's still constantly animating, and that's because that animation is now set to loop. So we did fix an initial problem, but all we have to do now is go to our player animations, select the death animation, and turn the loop time to false. Save this, head back into Unity again, and we should be good. And there we go. Our player dies, and we're good to go. I'll see you guys in the next video.